Hello, my name is Kinshasa Nicholas, and I am from the EDSE 640 section ON in assessment course. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about what an RTI is, and also I'm going to talk about the selected REI assessment form that I picked out. I'm going to talk about those two things. So I picked out a specific type of RTI that I'm going to talk about, and I'm also going to talk about what an RTI is. I'm going to explain what that is. An RTI is like a multifaceted pre-referral method of increasingly intense interventions which can be used to select students who have potential learning disabilities. So basically, it helps to weed out those students who potentially might possibly have a learning disability. It's not to say that these children have a learning disability, but it's just to identify just in case they do. And teachers will utilize this when they see certain students struggling. In certain areas, they will use a RTI, which stands for Response to Intervention. They will use that, and they are supposed to use that if they see that this child is struggling academically. So again, it is a multifaceted type of pre-referral method of increasingly intensive interventions, which can be used to select students who may potentially have a learning disability. The RTI, or the response to intervention, helps to filter students by providing more and more intensive instruction. So again, it'll keep piling on and get harder and harder and more intense in order to assist the student in the area where they need assistance. So the type of RTI that I selected is called Advanced Story Mapping. So Advanced Story Mapping. And Advanced Story Mapping is a visual aid to help assist students, for example, with comprehension. It helps students to see what is in a story, right? So it helps basically to break down a story. Like, what is this that we just read? It can be something as simple as a picture book to something as more complex as chapter books or nonfiction books or fiction books, okay? So basically it's helping to put together, to compartmentalize what you just read, to put together everything that what you just read and organize it in a way that makes sense, right? So the advanced story mapping uses visual aids to show how stories develop. The one that I'm going to talk about uses 4 different components. So it talks about the hook, it talks about the problem in the story, the climax, and the solution. RTIs are very useful, and especially advanced story mapping. Like I said, it can help with comprehension, and students. It helps the RTI is useful because it helps students to use these skills independently. So eventually, they'll be able to do the story mapping by themselves. In the beginning, you will need to model it for them. You might want to select a bunch of different types of books. I would suggest selecting different genres. So that way you have maybe some fiction books. You're going to have, books of all different informational text. You have books of all different types, and that will help them to get better and better at doing this advanced story mapping. So, and using this advanced story mapping also is great because it allows the educator to do like an informal assessment, and you basically will get a glimpse into what the student is thinking or how the student is thinking about what they just read. So if they're missing the whole part of the story, the big climax, for example, or the hook of the story, the hook, which is what brings you into the story, if they're missing that in their map, in their advanced story map, then that shows you that they need more help with it, they need more assistance with it. It means that they're not really understanding what they just read. So I'm going to show you some examples of some advanced story mapping that I've used already in my class over the years, and then we'll talk more about that. Okay, so this is one. Hopefully you can see this. Yes. Okay, so this is one that I've used before, and I've used this with kindergarten. I've used this with first grade. You can use it with second grade. So as you see here, this says main character. Then over here, setting. This is solution. This is problem. And you put the title here and the author. Okay, so this is a basic story map. This is not an advanced one. This is a basic one. And this is great, again, like I said, because it helps you to kind of break down the story. It helps you to break down the story that you're reading. So you simply fill this in. And again, other students might need help with this in the beginning. This is a great way to kind of, like I said, break down the story that was just, you just read. This is the second part to it, so I'll hold it like this so you can see it. This one here, again, it's the same thing, shows the setting. So that's the where, and then the when, which is also included in the setting. Then you also have the problem here, so you're going to write that down. The solution, the main characters, and the minor characters. Okay, and then again, the different components of the book, the title, the story, the author, and the illustrator. Okay, so this is important. So these are basic story maps, like I said, and these are really, really great because again, I like to hang these around my classroom. Usually that's what I do, depending on what book we're reading. You'll find these up around my classroom, and the students will have filled this in, and we first fill it in together as a unit, or as a group, as a whole class activity, so that way the children have an understanding of how I expect them to fill it out and how they're expected to read closely, to read very closely and be able to fill these components out. Very necessary. Also, I have another thing that I've done before in my class as well. This is called story retelling. So I write story retelling here at the top, and again down here, at the top here, I wrote, what do you say when you're asked to retell a story? What do you say when you're asked to retell a story? And so you're going to talk about the setting. You're going to talk about the characters. You're going to talk about the problem. You're going to talk about the happenings, like the event, at the beginning, the middle, and the end. BME, very important. And then you're going to talk about the solution, how the story has tied up, what happened at the end of the story. So that's another one that I use. Now I'm going to show you an advanced story map. So the advanced story map, like I said, is more for older students. You can use the advanced story map, and you can use all through, up to high school. Okay? So I'll show you a graph that I made, which shows the advanced story map. Hope you can see this. Okay. So this is the advanced story map, and basically in this chart here, you're going to see at the bottom, it says the character's setting. So they're going to put the character setting down here. Where's the story taking place? Then this is the hook, and I literally drew like a hook so you could see it. And this is I call this one actually it's like a story mountain, so to speak. Okay, and you'll see why I call it a story mountain. Then here, as you go up the mountain, the problem, right? So the problem is building, like when you're on a roller coaster. Right, Great Adventure. It's going up, 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 right? So the problem is leading all the way up here. Then you get to the top, and here's the climax. This is the big thing that's happening, right? The big thing, after all these problems happen, then there's something else huge that happens. And then as you come over here, the solution starts to take place. And the solution is here and all the way straight down. And so I'll show you one that I did recently with a book called A Case of Bad Stripes. Okay, Bad Case of the Stripes, excuse me. A Bad Case of the Stripes. So, as you see here at the bottom, it's going to say, this is the hook. And it says in the beginning, the character was confused. She was trying on clothes, and then she screamed. And then it says here, Camilla has stripes. All of a sudden, Camilla has stripes. And then as it's building up here, these are some of her problems that she's having. For example, I'll tell you one. She can't attend school with the stripes. And then all the way at the top, this is leading up to the climax. It says an older lady gave her lima beans. And then at the top here, Camilla is cured. And then here, she eats the lima beans. It's telling you part of the solution. She doesn't care what other people think about how she looks on the outside. And then here it says she never gets stripes again. And the story ended with she learned not to worry what others think about her. Okay? And so this story map, mountain, for example, a map, I have hung up in my classroom when we read the story Bad Case of the Stripes. So again, the advanced story map, and just to wrap it up again, helps students put into context what the story is about. This is a great type of RTI, like I said, because it helps students to be able to place into context what they just read, which is important, and it helps with their comprehension, which is also very important, because they need to not only be able to read the words, obviously, but they need to be able to understand what they just read. Okay, so I hope I was able to explain again what the advanced story mapping was and what an RTI, response to intervention, is. And I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Again, my name is Kinshasa Nicholas, and this is for the assessment course. And thank you very much.